The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
What is up, everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday morning. Appreciate you spending some time with us on your Sunday. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. If you miss any part of First and 12, subscribe to our podcast on the KSL Sports app or wherever you get your podcast. Alex, death, taxes, and when BYU goes to an old Pac-12 venue, it's going to get nasty. It's going to get heated, and that's what happened in Sun Devil Stadium yesterday as the Cougs fall to ASU, and Utah falls at home on Senior Day to Iowa State. So tough outcomes for our local teams, but we cover it all in Big 12 football here on First and 12, and let's dive into the league on Big 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
I want to know where you were, Mitch, when the fans hit the field. Like, were you going full TMZ? I mean, I saw the videos you sent, but Arizona State fans stormed the field. It's a wild scene at the end. Now, BYU, I mean, it looked like the game was already over. It almost felt like it, even on that last attempt. I think they ended up calling it an incomplete pass to Chase Roberts at the end. So it wasn't that he was at the 2 and was almost going to stretch in. It wasn't like a, it wasn't like a Kevin Dyson type situation. But what it was BYU did get that one more second on the clock, and but they still fall with tens of thousands of fans on the very outside of the field trying to see this thing end. So for one, I mean, they're going to get fined or whatever because you can't have your fans storm the field, but I kind of love that attitude. I love that Arizona State, you don't love it if you're a BYU fan, but I like that an upstart team that nobody thought could do anything was doing something awesome, because obviously BYU is doing a very similar thing this year. And Kenny Dillingham is 34 freaking years old. He's this head coach of this team. They're doing awesome.
And I love that there's another team besides Utah that when BYU lines up against them, maybe in 2 weeks or next year, there's some actual heat, there's some actual intensity behind the matchup instead of, it's just BYU's got the nicest fans, they got the best road traveling fans, we love
bring
this.
ice cream.
It's the nicest hospitality. I love the heat, I love the conference intensity. But I will say, down the field, I just my concern was, you get the high emotions of alpha athletes going back to the locker room, because Arizona State fans were clogging up the walkway to get to the locker room, and BYU administrators Brian Santiago and Tom Holmel were, going to the security. You got to clear this out because that could have got ugly. That could have got to where
some
players
Michigan State stuff from a couple years ago.
Exactly, and that would have got really nasty. And so, but it ultimately ended up being okay. There was roped off, and it worked out. So there was no kind of extracurriculars, but. So it got a little tense from that side of things, but it's rowdy. It's college football. Like, you're going to get students that are enjoying beverages that are not soda shop beverages. So it's a little bit different scene in Tempe than what we're used to in Provo.
It's not Swig Stadium. It's in Tempe. What are you talking about?
No, it's not. It's not. But I do love the intensity, and I think if this can be a rematch in the Big 12 championship, sign me up, because that would be a lot of fun. BYU, though, has got to take care of business going forward, because they were asleep at the wheel in the first half. They showed a lot of fight, but too little too late as they fall to the Sun Devils. How about Iowa State? Like you said earlier, Alex, I don't think we come away overly impressed with them, but, hey, they're still in this path to potentially get to Arlington as they control their destiny, and they get by Utah in Salt Lake City. Matt Campbell's squad is right there knocking on the door of a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, they just have to win. It's Farmageddon, though. Anything can happen. You got Kansas State, who's got a chip on their shoulder. They're going to Ames, and they could play spoiler for that, and BYU fans certainly are hoping for that if they have any chance. Everything starts with beating Houston, though, for BYU. Now, Utah going to have their first losing season since 2013, but it's not just that. If they lose next week, Mitch, we went back and checked this out. It'll be the first time in Utah's football program history that in one season they lost 8 games in a row. There have been seasons that they've only had 1 or 2 wins. But it was, breaking the season up. But a season has never been an 8-game losing streak ever in the history of Utah football. That's something that we never would have imagined we would have ever said this year. Utah falls to Iowa State 31-28, and Isaac Wilson doesn't look like he's going to be back the rest of the year, pending whatever the outcome is of that, what that knee is. How about Kansas, who has now dispatched the 3 best teams in the league for the last 3 weeks in a row? Iowa State, then BYU, and now Colorado yesterday. Devin Neal gets 250 total yards, and I don't know what it is. I know Travis Hunter was great, great, awesome. He got 2 touchdowns. They lost by 16 points to a Kansas team that everybody thought was dead and gone. This Kansas team could go to the Big 12 championship game, and they would probably beat anybody. I would put something on that. I almost want to see that. But you know what? You got to get it done. You got to win the close games, and they decided later in the year to get it going. I'm glad that Lance Leipold figured it out. But, of course, Colorado, they're going to need a miracle now to get in that Big 12 championship game. As soon as BYU beats Houston next week, if that happens, Colorado will be eliminated from contention, and then they won't be in that Big 12 talk. And maybe Brett Yormark gets a little bit sad about that, Mitch.
I swear the only conversation nationally is how, with the Big 12, is, how the media pollsters just got it completely wrong with the preseason poll. Well, you know what? Maybe this Kansas team was good. They were just snake bit early in the season.
Yeah,
and, hey, don't knock the media, too, because you know what? You want to open it up and let us learn a little bit more about these teams. Maybe open things up so we can actually get to know these teams instead of just making some wild predictions. But Kansas has got talent. They are really good. But still, it's amazing how they've turned it on and looked really good. And they've obviously saved Jeff Grimes' job because he was, target number 1 for Kansas fans. They wanted him fired, and now they're rolling with one more win needed to get to a bowl game. Kansas State, their rival in the Sunflower State, they trashed Cincinnati 41-15. And as you know, it sets up an epic Farmageddon. BYU fans are going to be watching that closely.
Baylor beat Houston, and Baylor, by the way, are they at 7 wins now? Are they 7-4? The Bears down there.
5 wins in a row.
Good for them.
5 wins in a row.
Dave Aranda, they already said they were going to retain him, and I think that's a good choice. I think that they figured a lot of stuff out. Them, Kansas, some of these other teams who didn't get off to a great start, they really have figured some things out. Baylor's one of those squads. You'd like to see those teams start to figure things out. You want it to be more competitive. West Virginia beats UCF. The Knights not going to be able to go to a bowl this year, but they can beat Utah next week at home to finish their regular season. West Virginia, by the way, I mean, Neil Brown, I don't know what people want out of this guy. He just keeps winning some football games, and they want to fire him, I'm sure, but he just keeps overperforming. I like West Virginia, but they just have had a weird season that hasn't turned into much for them. But speaking of weird seasons, TCU blows up Arizona. Speaking of other teams, TCU and Baylor very much in the same boat. Slow start. Now they're 7-4. And Sonny Dykes, everybody's favorite head coach down there in Fort Worth, is probably not going to be on the hot seat anymore.
That he's not. And I think Sonny Dykes, they've had a strong showing to turn around that season. On the flip side, Oklahoma State still winless in conference play as a battle of the 2 worst defenses in the conference. Sees Texas Tech go 56-48 over Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Oklahoma State 0-7, wild situation. And then finally, 4 teams tied atop the Big 12 standings at 6-2, heading into the final week of the season. So, yes, folks, Big 12 chaos. It will be an absolute ugly mess. It'll be a disaster, but I am here for that.
Yeah, man.
And it's going to be so much fun. Also, 9 teams have qualified now for bowl games. They hit that 6-win mark. 2 more. Kansas and Cincinnati, if they get 1 more win, they will qualify for a bowl game as well. So could be some good postseason representation from the Big 12 this holiday season.
Are you going to have to buy your ticket to Shreveport if the Cougs don't make that Big 12 championship game, Mitch?
Do not put that on me, Alex. Do not put that on me. I will happily take a Pop-Tarts bowl. I will happily take a Pop-Tarts bowl.
Absolutely. All right, our program brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store, the freshest fruits and vegetables from the local farms and your local favorite brands. Macy's, happy shopping. Let's take the break. We'll come back. We've got our sound roundup next. You don't want to miss some of the best sound from across the league. Stay here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio.